My name is Jen Gehrke, and this is my story. My story begins in Denver, Colorado, where I was born to two loving Christian parents and one big sister. My parents, who were natives of Wisconsin, moved to Colorado right after getting married, so my father could pursue a career in the insurance industry. After I was born, my mother accepted a job as a preschool teacher. While she was teaching, my sister and I would be across the hall from her in daycare. She only worked half days, so at noon we would head home with Mom for an afternoon of fun. When my dad would come home from work, we would spend time together in the garden, playing games and cooking in the kitchen together. When I began kindergarten, my baby brother was born, and my mom decided it was time to stay home and take care of our growing family. Always the teacher, my mom would have games, books, crafts, and fun activities for us to do whenever we needed a distraction. My parents would take us on adventures up in the mountains, and we would picnic under the trees. Since we didn't have any family around us, we spent lots of time together as a family, and I began to see how important family was to my parents. My parents were active in helping start a new church, and my father would often speak during services. His messages were always about having a positive attitude and believing in yourself. He would keep index cards lying around the house with sayings on them, and when life got tough for any of us, he would pull out his cards and give us a saying to repeat and remember. I still use these same cards today. Around this same time in my life, my father was offered a new job running his own insurance company. He jumped at the chance when he found out that same company was back in Wisconsin. My parents were thrilled to be moving back home, and my sister, brother, and I were excited for this new adventure. We ended up in a small town in northern Wisconsin, where once again, my mom accepted a job as a kindergarten teacher. Over the course of the next 12 years, I would spend a lot of time in kindergarten, helping my mom in her classroom. After so many years of watching and helping, I was determined that the last thing I was going to do with my life was be a teacher. I had aunts and uncles that were teachers. My parents' friends were teachers. I felt like I was surrounded by them. Do you know how hard it is to go to high school when your dad and your chemistry teacher are golf partners, and your dad and your basketball coach are good friends? When it was time for graduation, my only goal was to go to a school that was in a big city and far from home. When I was accepted to the University of Minnesota, I took my opportunity to be on my own and follow my dreams. When my parents suggested I take a few classes in education, I balked and told them it wasn't in the cards for me to be a teacher. The first 3 years at the U, I was a pre-med major and had lofty dreams of becoming a doctor. But after 3 long years of chemistry labs, biology classes, and anatomy and physiology, I began to have this feeling that medicine was not in my future. After years of fighting it, I took a Foundations of Education class, was put into a first grade classroom, and realized I was finally home. I had lost the battle. Being a teacher was in my blood. I couldn't deny it any longer. After that year, I transferred to the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, because why wouldn't I? It was where my mother and father had both gone to get their degrees, and education was what they did. But alas, I only ended up spending 2 years there before I got the itch to be in a big city again. So I transferred once more to Cardinal Stritch University down in Milwaukee. It was there that I ended up finishing my degree and graduating with a bachelor's degree in education. It was my first teaching job in Janesville, Wisconsin, that finally gave me some perspective on how privileged my life had been up until that point. In my first year, I met students from backgrounds so diverse from my own that many nights I would leave school with a heavy heart, wondering how I could help my students and their families. I had students in foster care, students where one parent was incarcerated, parents suffering from substance abuse, and kids that went home each night not having enough to eat. I looked to my father's quotes to help me, and even began using some of them in my classroom. That experience taught me about the kind of teacher I wanted to be, and it made me realize that one person can make a difference. I went on to teach in a few different places after that, and in a few different grade levels, always keeping with me what I had learned that first year. I began to take what I learned from my students as a blessing, so that I in turn could give back in any way that I could. I was offered a job as a reading teacher while I was up in St. Paul, Minnesota. It was then that I met my husband. He was in training to become an airline pilot down in St. Louis, Missouri. He would fly up on weekends, or I would fly down to see him when I could. After about 1.5 years, we decided to get married. His job would take him to Chicago, Illinois, and for us, it just made sense to move to Milwaukee so that I could find a job and he could fly. Those first few years, we had fun traveling from coast to coast and around the world. Seeing how people lived in other cultures and countries made me realize how lucky we are here in the U.S. The freedoms we enjoy, the diversity we have, and the space. To live in a 3-bedroom home with 2 cars and enough food to keep us plump and healthy, we were living in luxury compared to most people. Working in the suburbs of Milwaukee was another turning point for me in teaching. I was working as a teacher in Brookfield, Wisconsin, in one of the wealthiest districts in the state. The teachers that worked there were entitled, and the students who attended my school were even more so. There was no diversity, but plenty of politics. I was working in the heart of a community that believed that students from the inner city of Milwaukee should not benefit from their resources, so they closed their district borders and became a resident-only district. The pressure from the district office to be the best in all things was so strong that in the end, it almost broke me. I had 2 children while working in Brookfield and realized that I had missed so much of their lives because I was too busy trying to be the best. I spent every waking moment during the week and on weekends working to make our school the best, our scores the best, our students the best, that I lost sight of what was really important. It was again my father who brought me back. His message was simple. The art of achievement is the art of making life, your life, a masterpiece. My masterpiece was my family. They were there all along, and I got caught up in the rat race of life that I couldn't slow down to see what was right in front of me. My parents had taught me at a young age the importance of family. Mine got lost in the mix. I had to make a change. Today, my family and I are living in a small town in central Wisconsin. I'm working 3 days a week as a literacy coach in a high-poverty school where teachers and students alike need me. I have found a place where I am valued, where I can make my talent shine, and I can once again make a difference in the lives of others through my teaching. I am home.